welcome to Powered4.TV. I'm your host, John Scott, and it is my honour and pleasure, finally, to get the man himself, the man that SP3 has been talking about continuously, the real A side of the cassette, I will say, Mr. Alex McCarthy. How are you, my friend?
The cassette. Wow, make me feel old.
The cassette. Wow.
That's our era. I'm good, thank you, man. Nice busy week. Just coming to a close. Had some interviews locked in. Cool day actually. Had Adam Cole yesterday and Britt Baker tonight. I mean, not planned or anything, but it's just how it's happened. So that's cool. Yeah, excited, man. And thanks for the invite. And I'm glad that I finally carved out the time to come here.
No, it's good, man. I know how busy you are, and you know most people that watch my channel know who Alex McCarthy is. Some of my audience, I've got a few members that are a little bit like they like to stir the pot, shall we say? They're always kind of influencing. Oh, if SP3 comes to the UK, I bet you, John, that he goes to Alex over you. He'll drop you like nobody's business. So it's like there's always like this running tension, like there's something between us and all the time. But I always try and put people straight. But you know what, the wrestling fan base, they love a bit of drama. So I think we play into it a little bit. But
going,
mate, start off. I'm going to ask you a little bit of a football question right off the bat. Not totally into wrestling now. Like a lot of people know, I'm a Spurs fan. I'm not very happy with the way things are going at the moment. I've got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Very underwhelming with that manager appointment after goodness knows how many days. I was just like, really? Okay, we'll get on with it. But your team, I know you're a big Newcastle fan, and I've got to ask you, like, I actually don't know too many Newcastle fans. And I've got to say, like, in the 90s, I used to follow Newcastle a lot. Purely because Tottenham were never near the Champions League, never near Europe. So they were like my team I'd watch on ITV on a Wednesday or Tuesday. I'd support Newcastle for those days. But gone off that era now. How are you with Newcastle? And what is it like to be a Newcastle fan with the whole Mike Ashley circus upstairs, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I thought Mourinho going cup final week was ridiculous. And then I don't... Nuno Santo is like, that's fine. You know, it would have looked better maybe a year ago, right? But I think obviously the fact that he's, fifth, sixth choice is not a great indictment. But never mind. For Newcastle, man, it's a tough one because I feel like for us, we've been shackled by Mike Ashley for so long. And we felt like we had it back with Rafa. Things were kind of starting to turn. And then Mike Ashley didn't want to give him the money that he wanted to like invest in the squad. So he went. And then we spent 40 million on Joelinton, which was just, it was almost like
that left field.
He just did it to prove a point after Benitez went. And it was just, a terrible deal. So, listen, when you're in St. James's Park and it's packed, it's one of the best experiences you'll ever get. Like, the atmosphere is amazing. I've driven 5 hours up to home games up the M1 just to get to Newcastle. But aesthetically, we're not the greatest. It's not a great. I will say, like, last year, Callum Wilson was a great buy. I like Jamal Lewis. St. Maximin, of course, is like the saviour. But like, if we are missing 2 or 3, we're like done for. So, and it always feels like we're in that kind of pattern. It was the same when we had Ben Arthur. He was like the saviour. Mm-hmm. And again, we had Demba Ba and then he went and whatever. Like, it's a far cry from the exciting time of the 90s, and some of the players we had there and being competitors. So I think for Newcastle, it would be great if we just could build on our squad for once, because we never really do. Ashley kind of has the makings of a squad, but he never wants to really back it. He obviously wants to sell, but he wants what he deems is the right price. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of stuck in this eternal loop where you see these reports, oh, they're going to sell, and then we don't sell, and it's just like, oh, man. So Mike Ashley, I think, sees it as a business, and we need someone who's willing to like invest and make a success of the club, which I just don't think Mike Ashley is. We could go into this all day. about the intricacies of Mike Ashley. He's a very
Let it
complex.
let it out, Alex. I'll be the
Well,
therapist here.
I mean,
It's
that was the
okay.
thing. Like, you know, he came in. He was like, "Oh, Mike Ashley's paid off all our debt," but he didn't really. He just made the debt towards him, and they were like, "Oh, it's yeah, but he's not charging us anything on top of it." But it was like, we've just transferred it over, really. Like, he's just making sure that he recoups it. He just treats it like a business, right? He's not overly interested in investing. And that has always been the issue, because with Newcastle, you're going to sell out St. James's Park every home game virtually. You've got that support and fan base. And in turn, you've got the revenue that comes with that. There is a platform there for somebody who really wants to take the club forward. So I'd love to. I hope it happens in my lifetime.
Yeah, Mike Ashley's quite the character. I remember when he first started at your club, he used to turn up in like the Geordie top as well, and just be sitting there like any other fan with a pint on the side and just cheering. And I remember that look not going down too well, and also the time where I think he had the Sports Direct influence of the kit, of like they had like a Brazil kit going at one time.
Yeah, he changed the stadium name as well, which everyone was furious about. That was another one where he tried to make it the Sports Direct Arena, and everyone was like, "Come on, mate."
Yeah, and there's a couple of real beauties out there as well. I believe there's a stadium in Turkey called the Bargain Booze Stadium. I don't think you can go that low, but I know what you mean. You don't want all that. I've got to ask you, Alex, like when you take you to the wrestling side of things now, my friend, like when you first got involved with wrestling in terms of the media,
yeah,
where was the UK scene at that point when you came in? Like, what was your sort of influences that were around, or did you not? Was that something that wasn't out there for you at the time?
Yeah. So you mean like the scene in terms of the media, right?
Sure. Yes.
So I mean, there wasn't one. To be honest, like I'm not trying to paint it like I'm some sort of like trailblazer or anything like that. But
you can, Alex. Come on, we know. You get the views. He's on Talksport. You were given that job for one reason and one reason only: get views on the internet, get more interest. And you've done. Listen, I'm going to be the first to say you've done a fantastic job at it. I don't think anybody could take that away from you. Do you know what I mean? I remember when you got appointed. In fact. I remember the date. I wrote it down because I was so no, it wasn't to that extreme. But yes, you have done fantastic. But I was just curious to find out like what on earth what the scene was like. But obviously not. It wasn't out there at all by the sounds of it.
I mean, it was. Obviously, we've always had like the Dave Meltzers of this world in America, and I would say around this time, which is about 2016. Ryan Satin is kind of just coming up with Pro Wrestling Sheet. Sean Ross Sapp really isn't on the scene too much. I think Fightful was founded maybe a year later. I'm not entirely sure about that. It's around that time. Mike Johnson, of course, is like a luminary as well, and we've got John Pollock. So those are like your established names. But in the UK, we didn't have anything like that. You know, people doing interviews, much less insiders. So for me, it was more about just following what I loved rather than trying to develop a blueprint or even really take it anywhere, right? Like I just liked wrestling. Where I worked at Give Me Sport at the time, they were like, well, it came about because of 2K, actually. You know, they do the WWE games.
Yep.
They were promoting it and they said, oh, do you want an interview with the Big Show? And then just doing a good job with that and Sheamus, because obviously I probably approached it differently than most people had before because I was a real fan. The things I was asking them and just the traction the interviews then got, it just kind of took off. And then WWE obviously all of a sudden interested in working with me more, giving me more stuff. So I don't just have to go through 2K at that point. And then that's really where things started to get into gear for me, for sure, where I was going to WrestleManias and SummerSlams and doing all these interviews that were, I kind of, that's how I made my name, I would say, is in the interviews with people.
Yep.
And then like you pretty much said it yourself, the numbers were so good that then Talksport were looking to expand their website, and they said, why don't you come aboard for us and just do that? And I thought, yeah. And at that point, there's no like, and you're going to have a radio show. Like, that was nothing to, it was not, the website and the radio are basically two different things at Talksport. It's probably hard to believe for people on the outside, but it is. Like, they're almost two different companies. So it's so rare that for me to get a show. But again, that was the same thing. The numbers did so well on the website that I was saying to them, look, there's clearly an audience for this. We could make something out of this. And that's how that was born. So really, it's been all these little milestones and successes along the way, right? Where, the performance is the main thing, but timing and luck, they all come into it. But just being able to prove that people do love wrestling and that there is an audience for people to read about wrestling out there, I feel like it's a kind of beautiful cocktail that has come together, and it's allowed me to get to, where I am now. And along that way, to see guys like, I mean, you mentioned Esprit 3 earlier. I love working with that guy. But to keep it to a British standpoint, like a Gary Cassidy, I know Louis has just taken my old job at Give Me Sport, Louis Dangourde, Steph Chase, Digital Spy, Matty Paddock's out there doing some work, Alistair McGeorge. There are like a ton of people now where a lot of different outlets in the UK have realised the same thing. Like, oh, there is a lot of traffic in this. And thus a scene has been born. I guess I was just lucky to be one of the first to kind of push that forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you saying all that, my friend, like picking out some parts you were saying, I was thinking back to Talksport with the first time round when they had wrestling, because I used to phone up. I think it was on a Saturday night. I think they used to do it with Tommy Boyd, the Lils boys, and Dean Ayash used to be on there. And that was like, okay, let's talk some WWE. And they used to put about 15 minutes worth of British wrestling in. If they could just cram it in there just to say, look, there's FWA. And that's when I found out about them. But when I started to do the media stuff back then, I've got to say it's totally different ball game to what it's like now. I mean, there was no way I was getting interviews back then. It was very much protected business. And I had to spend about 6 months before I even got like an in with anybody to trust me. Whereas, of course, today I can kind of go most places, especially on the independents, and be kind of quite welcomely accepted without too much worry. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if I kind of miss that old protective stuff sometimes. Like there is a part of me that kind of wishes it was still a little bit like that, not to the degree, but I kind of do wish that sometimes, like when you go as a paying customer, like as a fan, I kind of wish like we just were fans still. I'm not sure we'll ever get back to that day. And that's a whole discussion in itself. But I kind of feel like it won't be long until I go to an independent show and they say, oh, your VIP ticket, this gets you backstage with the guys and you can watch them work out their match. Yeah. Maybe you can even book it at the same time. And I'm like, I don't want it to be that customized to the audience. Do you know what I mean? I miss just going to an event, sitting in a group without a booker behind me or somebody saying this is going to happen next, which typically happens a lot. But also what comes to my mind is I did go to one independent wrestling that was like, real independent wrestling. Someone said to me, oh, there's this wrestling down this centre. Now, this was about 2002. And they said, there's some real good quality wrestlers here. So I thought, wow, my luck's in. So I go to this place in London. I get there, and then I realise that the ring, there is no ring, first of all. It's a crash mat. The ropes are being held up by 3 mop handles, and the 4th one was by a bin. And the whole show was played by the same 3 guys, just wearing different masks. And that was my first taste of like, real independent wrestling, I guess, to be charged. But that's a completely different time. But you're right. I mean, it's completely changed since then, like the kind of industry in the UK. And I think a lot of it, whether people like to admit it or not, is the good influence from WWE. I know some people will harp on at me for that because they'll say, no, WWE tried to kill it and they've taken all our good guys and all the rest of it. But I do feel like they have helped the UK scene. And I always say that whenever WWE is doing well, it always trickles down. Like there's like a ripple effect with that. But I've got to ask you now, Alex, like with the way you see it, do you feel like UK wrestling, has it got a glass ceiling to the point where you think that no promotion can ever grow to a certain point, because WWE is kind of has an existence here now, if you will, like where they can take stars.
I mean, first of all, what you said about, wanting to go back to real wrestling, I think it's a double-edged sword, because for me as an interviewer, I want them to tell me things.
Right.
That's kind of the crux of a lot of my interviewing, is getting to, the hows and the whys. And I think that's always been the interesting aspect for me, because you get stuff back from them in character. I don't know how much people are interested in that. But like today, for instance, Adam Cole's out there and he's saying that the Undisputed Era, he's admitting that it was like a last minute decision. It wasn't well thought out. It was just something that was dropped on them. That's interesting to me. And I think a lot of people like to know those kind of things. At the same time, I would nothing was greater than when I was like a 10-year-old watching wrestling. I didn't know about dirt sheets. I didn't know about hardly anything. I'm just watching it for what it was. And it was like the greatest thing. Legitimately the most entertaining thing I could think of, the Rock and Austin in their prime and all of that great stuff. So, obviously I'd love to go back to a world like that, but there is no going back, unfortunately. Like now I try never to be the spoilers guy. Like, I know a fair amount of stuff that's coming up in NXT UK that's already been taped, but again, like, I wouldn't want to tell anyone that. And the same with like, I remember when Edge was injured at Backlash, I said to Sean Rossap, I said, you can have it if you want. I let him verify it, but after I'd heard it, I just thought, I wish I didn't know this stuff. But I say that I don't know everything at all, but you do hear little nuggets, and it's just like, oh, that sucks. Yeah, in terms of British wrestling, I think like WWE, it just makes it easy for people to make it a target. But it is the natural order of things since the beginning of time. Like the cream or the proverbial cream will always rise to the top. It will. It will go to the place where it has the best money and most exposure, and that is WWE. But back in the day, it would have been any territory, right? You could have all made that claim against anything. The British scene, I think, took so much offense to WWE getting involved with ICW and Progress and whatever, because it was booming to such a level that it hadn't done in decades, and everyone felt like it was theirs. I understand, but it's not killing something, right? Like that will always be the way, where there'll be, territories of, Memphis or whatever, like Mid-South. They all had boom periods, but nothing lasts forever. And then they all move on and do different things or whatever. And I feel like the British wrestling scene had maybe reached its apex without a Tony Khan or someone saying, okay, let's do it, right? There is only so far you can go without that backing and then TV deals and all of that stuff. There is a ceiling, of course there is. And as a performer, if you're going to reach your potential, you have to go to these other places. And I don't think that's a bad thing. You should want the best for the performers, right? You should want them to reach their apex. And I understand that it's hard to let go sometimes. And, I just don't feel like you can ever levy accusations of selling out to people like that. And the promotions will live on and the conveyor belt will continue. But as is the food chain, as it were, in wrestling, the best will always rise up and go do, unless they want to sit around and be in Progress forever or whatever, which, nothing against them if they did. But unless that's their career goal, the ceiling's always going to be higher than that. So again, Britain could have a real flagpole, massive worldwide promotion. Let's just say, I don't know, ITV said we're going to put it in a prime slot, and then this big Tony Khan-esque Vince McMahon figure comes in and says, you know what, I'm going to put my back in behind this.
It's Mike Ashley.
The last thing
the sportsdirect.com wrestling promotion.
Yeah, Jesus. I think that would be the only way, because at the end of the day, that's always going to be what speaks the most, is exposure and the money and, the lineage with WWE and stuff as well. At one point, if you're a Steven Regal or Fit Finlay, the gateway from here to America is like the hardest thing ever. But now it's never been easier. So I think that should be a good thing for all performers. And as you say, it should trickle down nicely to everyone else. I think so.
Yeah, no, it's like it's like just a spoke on a wheel. I mean, I say you've got to see it. Opportunities are always there, and I think that there's never been a better time to be a wrestler in the UK in terms of being able to get somewhere within a radius where you are. I mean, back in the day, you'd have to go to Portsmouth for FWA Academy or Hammerlock and goodness knows where on trains and Christ knows where on places. So yeah, in that respect, it's definitely a lot easier. Now, when you talk about it made me laugh when you talked about sitting on sometimes when you get the news and the juicy stuff, and you're kind of like, well, I'm not going to share that. I'm going to give it to someone else. You must sit there sometimes, or like go to sleep thinking about it, like you got to get it off your chest. Do you ever get that, or are you past that now? Like the first few times that happened, did you ever get that itch, like, oh, I'm sitting on something and I can't say nothing, but I want to say something, like that whole dealing with it? How does that feel like sometimes?
I've got one like right now that I'd love to share, but I would just be crucified by WWE and that if I did. Like, and again, it is more relevant to the UK, but it's one of them. Like, you think to yourself, oh, it'd be great. You know, there'd be like a day where everyone's like, wow, you know, Alex has broken this news, and then obviously, you know, because it's true, it's great for you and your reputation, but you know, people forget quick. So is it really worth treading on people's toes to get out some news and stuff like that? You know, so there's a lot of different things you have to weigh up. And equally, sometimes I get stuff and I think this is good, you know, okay, I'm going to run it. And then you're terrified because obviously like you don't want to compromise your reputation. That's like, it's your bread and butter. Without it, who are you? So, I remember being told about the Riddle Brock Lesnar thing at Royal Rumble, which is one of the biggest stories that I definitely broke. Like what was said backstage between them and stuff. And obviously, you know, you read the comments and people are like, oh yeah, but and some of them are like, oh yeah, I don't know. And then Riddle, I actually got to interview Riddle, and like word for word, he basically said exactly what happened, and I was like, oh, but. Yeah, and the same thing with I've used this example a couple of times. I said about Charlotte, you know, she had time off last year. I was like the only person who said, oh, she won't be back till the end of the year. Like I remember Meltzer and Mike Johnson were like, oh, they're trying to bring her back for SummerSlam. And I wish, as soon as I did it, I wish I hadn't. But I put, oh, she 100% won't be back for SummerSlam. And I knew because I knew when her surgery date was. And I was like, but as soon as I wrote that, I just thought, oh man, but what if she cancels the surgery, or like, what if plans change? You know what I mean? Change. You just look stupid. Luckily, she didn't come back till like 2 weeks before the end of the year, so you know it worked out well for me. But people probably even forgot that I'd said it. But the point is, there's always a lot to weigh up. You know, it's context, and spoilers is something that I'm not crazy about. Like you remember when Christian was cleared to come on Raw and basically take a punt from Randy, and that was kind of like big news. Christian hadn't been in that capacity in ages, and that was another thing that I'd heard about, and I was just like, I really am an R back and forth. But then while I was an R, I think WrestleVotes or someone dropped it, and I was like, well, that's it then. Like, you know, it didn't really bother me that much. The difference between myself and like a Sean Ross Sapp or someone, and the Fightful Select's doing amazing, by the way. That's probably the most consistent stream of great wrestling news in the business, I would argue, even more than the Observer. And they've really built that. And it's through things like this. I work for Talksport, where I'm not trying to take like people's money. There's no pressure on me to drop spoilers and things like that. So I think consciously, I've never wanted to be like a spoiler person. But if I ever get, you know, backstage news or you know what's going on. Just another example that flips my head. Remember when Angel Garza was in the tag match and everyone thought his knee had gone, and you have the power to reach out to people and find out what's going on. Do that. That's fine. But you don't want me to tell you that, I don't know, Edge is going to win the title of Money in the Bank. I don't know if he is, but you don't want me to tell you that, right? Like there's a difference. So I always feel like that balancing act is important, and also. There's a shelf life to people that say, oh, these are the plans, or Vince McMahon thinks this. And I've done those Vince McMahon thinks reports and looked back and thought, oh, Jesus. You know, because people tell you, Vince McMahon doesn't tell you that, does he? So you have to put your stock into those around him that are.
Yep.
And that's a dangerous game. So I always think, how many people have we seen in recent years come and go who try and go for the rumors and reports and they end up getting shot down and they're gone. So I always feel like the credibility of your work has to stand. And that's why I love interviews, man. Like, what's better than from the horse's mouth? Right? Whether you believe it or not after that is up to you. But if you source that information from them, what's better than that?
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you. There is something about it. And a big shout out also to your co-host over at Talksport, Will Gavin. He was like, when I got back into the media again in 2016, 17, he was the only guy in amongst all of them. Because I was like little me in amongst all these. There was the Sun newspaper. There was Talksport. I believe another chap called John
Jackson
there with him. Yeah. And they were both absolutely fantastic. Like, they were both welcoming. They gave me some great pointers, and we've kept in touch ever since. So big shout out to Will Gavin. He's a solid guy.
Before I joined Talksport, right? Those two had like their own podcast. It wasn't on Talksport, but it was something that they put together called the Pro Wrestling Show. And we met at WrestleMania 34. So not that long ago, but we met at WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans, and we just hit it off from there. And at that point, so me getting a job at Talksport has like nothing. Their hosts, they had nothing to do with them. The website team's totally different. But as soon as I did join Talksport, I joined their podcast, and it's funny that it grew to the radio show that me and Will have been doing now. Although Will wasn't actually involved with it originally because he was away, and it's just a weird thing. But it all worked itself out. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Now, in terms of like being, because I know a lot of people ask this on my show to you. So while you're here, I'm going to ask it. I have a lot of listeners, and they go, "Why doesn't Alex McCarthy be a play-by-play guy? Like, why hasn't he entered into that realm yet?" We always get those questions, and obviously, I can't speak for you, so I say go over there and ask him. He's on Wrestling Daily. He finished it like, come on. But I don't know if they have or they haven't. But is that ever come across your mind to do, or has it ever come up, or have you ever given it a go?
Yeah, I mean, no one has asked me yet. I've been asked to. I don't know how much I can say. So I am doing something on screen in the coming weeks that a lot of people will see. I can't reveal what it is yet because it gives stuff away, but that's with WWE.
There you go.
And that is something I really love. Like, just being involved in a wrestling production, I think is amazing. And I know there are people out there that like, oh, how can you do that? Because then it kind of brings in, it questions the integrity of the reporter and all of that stuff. But I don't really go along with that at all. I think you should be judged by the quality of your work, right? Like, you should be able to distinguish the two. If you're going to appear on a show in some capacity, I don't think that directly correlates to the work you do. And if it does, it will prove itself in your work, right? But don't just make a predetermined kind of assumption on that. But for me, I would love to do something like that. There was a guy at Progress. I don't think he doesn't work there anymore, but I was talking to him for a little bit, and we were kind of exploring different possibilities like that. But again, with how busy I've been with Talksport and then the pandemic, it just wasn't something that ever got discussed, and then I don't think he's there anymore. So it is something I would like to do, or I would like to be involved with a wrestling promotion in some capacity that could use me. Like, I watch these NXT TakeOver pre-shows, right? And you've seen that journalists have been on them recently, and I look at that and I think I could do that. Get me on there, like NXT UK if they have a takeover or something. I would really enjoy that. But I don't know. As far, I mean, being a play-by-play guy, Christ, it's hard.
Do you think that just going on that point about when they turn up on the pre-show, do you think they give them carte blanche to say, yeah, go on, say what you want? Or do you think there's a little bit of a narrative to go with? Because whenever I watch a pre-show, I always think, well, waste of time. The only reason I say that is because if you have three on a panel one of them will side. If it's a triple threat, they're each side with one person at least.
Yeah.
And I always think, oh God, this is, if I put it in football context, they wouldn't talk about things like that, and they'd maybe talk about what arsenal of moves they could use to actually win the match, rather than the story building to it, which is kind of a rehash. Then you watch a promo video, and then it's just like a non-building thing. But I wonder like how influential they are with what you say. And I mean, you would obviously be able to adapt to it. I have no doubt about that. But I just wondered to myself, I wonder if you could be sneaky and just get a little snidey one in there.
Yeah, I mean, once you're live, I'm sure you could. But I mean,
he won't see you again. But
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know how heavily scripted WWE is, but just in my experiences of what I've just spoken about, there are scripts, and I don't think in a panel you'd have to go word for word, but you're right, they would probably set out, okay, so we need to hammer this point home, you take this, you take that, whatever. Like you can probably do it in your own words, but there will be somewhere you have to get to, because I feel like if you were trying to script a pre-show panel, that'd be really rigid and horrible.
Yeah,
but 1000% they don't just go, have fun with it. The WWE are pretty meticulous with that stuff.
Yeah, kind of a shame, because I always used to think back in the day, Jesse Ventura just used to go off on the very logical things. I was always thinking what he was saying a lot of the times. I thought he spoke the most sense, and I could never imagine him reading from some sort of script.
Well, would you say as well, on Talking Smack, I don't think Heyman's particularly scripted.
Right, yeah. Yeah, there's a few people that probably aren't. Brock is probably another as well, that can just kind of get away with that. But yeah, no, it's fascinating. So if I do ever see you there, I'll know if it's natural and it's just not. I think the Undertaker will win. That kind of thing.
Well, you'll be able to judge me. You'll be able to judge me in a few weeks. But all I will say is that although it was like a collaborative thing, yeah, I don't want to say
you'll smash it. No, you'll smash it. But you're a natural with that. But no, it's great. And another guy that I always influenced by is even though I'll put it to a side for now, I did clob him with a ladder last year, Simon Miller, who obviously got in the business, and he does both. But he got that kind of feeling from fans, like, oh, he shouldn't do both, and he should just pick one over the other. And I'm like, why? He's got the audience. He's grown that, like, he wants to do, like, it seems like a perfect match to me. Why wouldn't you want this guy in a promotion? Like, think what he can bring. So I'm all for that. I don't kind of believe that you have to sit on one side or the other, as long as you uphold the integrity of the promotion you're working for. Obviously, you don't want to go back and then jump on a YouTube channel and then tell everyone what happened backstage, such and such. That would be a disaster. But I think it can be done nonetheless.
I'm a massive Simon fan. That guy is one of the nicest guys. I mean, he's in shape, by the way, as well. So it's not like he's being a parody of a wrestler. You know what I mean? Like, he's doing it. But also, just super talented. He's kind of become like the unofficial third man of Talk Wrestling. Like, we have him on for our pay-per-view pre-shows, but also there's only been one occasion each where Will and I couldn't do it, but Simon was the guy we brought in. I just love his energy. I think he's great.
Yeah, he's like, he can stay an 8 for like 10, 20 minutes. I don't know how he does it, but he's got this energy. I'd be flat out after that, I tell you. But yeah, he's fantastic. Couple of questions here. What is your sort of flavor of wrestling? What do you enjoy watching the most as you've got older, and especially as you're now on that side of the media? Because I always think it is difficult to watch wrestling through the fan eyes when you've got the eyes of the media and everything else. Like, it's hard to just sit back and enjoy it, because there's always something coming up, or you're working and goodness knows what else. But if you had to just sit down, is there a particular thing that it could be from the past as you've grown up on, or something you've even gone back further that you've liked and enjoyed? Do you have a certain particular type of pro wrestling that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, I would definitely. Yeah. it's interesting because from what you just said, whenever I am watching a show, I am approaching it like, okay, well, I've got my radio show on Monday, and then obviously I've got my YouTube show. So like, you're always watching it from like a critical analysis standpoint. Oh, it was great what he did there with to work the hand to segue into this spot. And really, it's kind of annoying to watch it like that, right?
Yeah.
Like almost taking notes as it goes.
It's not much fun if there's someone sitting with you. It's even worse, I would imagine, for them.
Well, that's what I mean. Like you're trying to kind of, you don't want to just give bland analysis, so you're trying to like sound as educated and informed as possible, and it's just like, sometimes that's a bit heavy, but in general, I think what attracted me to wrestling more than anything. I've been very, very clear in the past that The Rock is my guy. He always was. As a kid, I just thought his personality was so magnetic, but he was cool as well.
Mm-hmm.
He could go in the ring. I know he's not exactly famed for that. I think he's actually a little underrated, if I'm honest. But because his personality was so big and gregarious, that's kind of dominated his legacy. But for me, that was the best part of it, was like the big characters and the storylines, and that era is very easy to love, but also the matches that then are born out of those are great. So do I really want to sit down and watch an hour, anyone wrestle for an hour? Not really. It has to be really good if I'm going to watch it for 30 minutes, right? Like there has to be a great match. Like Reigns, Bryan and Edge was 30 minutes, but it doesn't feel like it. Whereas, this is not like an AEW versus WWE thing, but I think FTR, I don't know if it was the Bucks or it was Kenny or Page, one of them two wasn't great, in my opinion, anyway. And it went like half an hour, and it just felt like half an hour. I was like, this is just going on and on. I don't need that in my wrestling. I need chaos and beautiful stories and stuff that manifests in the ring. I'm a sucker for chaos as well. Give me a TLC, give me some destruction, whatever. Like anything that's entertaining is what I love. So I think I'm a mixture, man. Like I love the art. If you give me Pete Dunne and somebody, Cole O'Reilly, like mat wrestling, with these beautiful kind of transitions and key locks, and I just think, yeah, that's great. I love it. I love that stuff. I remember watching Chad Gable in NXT going, that guy is amazing. But also I'm not, I don't love what Alexa Bliss is doing right now. But I'm not like closed-minded either. Do you know what I mean? I'm not one of those wrestling fans that's like, no, I just want my pure wrestling. So I think I'm a mixture. But to me, what's good is good. Whether it's entertainment, whether it's the actual stuff in the ring, what's bad is bad, what's good is good. And that's just basically how I objectively consume my wrestling, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I think you've got to, otherwise you might go insane if you don't doing the job you do as well. So you got to, you got to have those moments where you can go back and enjoy something from a past tense.
But I mean, the personality I do think is huge, right? Because like in wrestling, you need to have somebody that you really gravitate towards. And I think like, it was amazing when, I just Rock and Austin, anyone who lived through that era, it was just an unbelievable era. But, moving along, when Punk got really hot in 2011, when Becky Lynch and Daniel Bryan got really hot, and now Roman Reigns, in my opinion, is hot. Like that's like the best things to watch, when somebody is literally just on the top form possible. It just makes everything around it better. Like that's I guess that's one of the main things I love in wrestling, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to finish this interview on this note, Mr. McCarthy. I'm going to put it out to you. It's a question we get a lot on my show time to time. Roman Reigns, the reports were coming out that WWE were considering now putting him back as a babyface, something they tried for a very long time. My argument to that was, isn't he already to a lot of people? And surely, I believe if they really wanted to keep him a heel, they would have left him as he was, and it just be an inside thing where you just keep going out smiling, but we keep throwing you down their throats. That's more. It's kind of odd now that he's this bad guy persona, and he's a badass because he wins his matches without even the outside interference half the time, which is a bit like Brock. It's the same sort of formula. that if they suddenly start having him going back as a babyface playing up to the crowd, I got a feeling that it might fall on its butt again. You know, like I don't want to see him make the same mistake. I kind of feel like this attitude of Roman Reigns, love him, hate him, whatever, just let him be that, you know, and people take what they want. But I believe this is the most popular he's ever been, which is ridiculous, but that's how wrestling works these days.
I've always loved Roman, right? Like, I didn't love the way he was originally pushed. Like, he was really shoved down our throats when the Shield broke up.
Suffering suck attacks.
Yeah, oh, Jesus. But yeah, but for all of that, I could see the merits in him. He had good matches. He looks great.
Yeah.
He's grown.
He's got presence.
Yeah, he has. And, you know, I've interviewed him as well, so maybe there's a bit of bias there, but he's just such a super nice, great guy. Like, I can see why everyone in the locker room loves him. He is a great guy. But he needed the same argument you just made to not turn him face. It's the same argument, I guess, we were hearing when it was like, let's turn him heel. Well, he already was a heel. And that's what Triple H used to say, right? Well, people are already booing him, so why would you turn him? But we both know that the goal of those experiments, despite what Triple H said, well, they wanted him to get cheered. They were moving mountains to get that man cheered.
Yeah, of course.
And really, the fact that they were going so out of their way to do that should have told them all along that what they were doing was wrong. They had the evidence all along with The Rock, right? Of the shove down the throats, let him turn, comes back and he'll be huge. Roman will organically be huge, but you don't need to like put a label on him and say, "Oh, people like you now, so now be a babyface. Now go out there and kiss babies or whatever." Like, that's not what Roman Reigns needs to be doing. The tribal chief, let it be the tribal chief. People will gravitate towards that. I feel like sometimes there's too much of a, I don't know if label is the right word, but people want to like make it a real sort of tangible thing. Like, oh, you're a babyface now, so you have to do this. Like, people like what they like. Like, The Rock was an arsehole, right? But everyone loved him, and they didn't really divert from that too much. Yeah, his actions changed, but he didn't. The way he spoke and like the attitude was the same. The energy was the same. That's what Roman needs to maintain. And I feel like with him and Heyman, they were obviously such big proponents of what he's doing right now and the creators of that, really. I mean, Roman had him by the balls because he was sitting at home and Vince wanted him back. So he obviously had a lot of say in what was going to happen. But they'd be silly to divert from that now. If Vince went, well, you know what? Now you're face, you can be what I wanted you to be. He'd be an idiot, and I don't think he is that much. You know, he's a stubborn man, but I don't think he's an idiot. So I would have to imagine that they're just going to keep staying the course with Roman in this role for now. And if the end goal is The Rock, why would you turn Roman anytime soon? You know, I look at Becky like when she was red hot. It was when she had all that attitude and she was telling Edge that he might, you know, break his neck and all that rubbish. Or, you know, look at Britt Baker now in AEW. She's not exactly a good person, but everyone loves her. So sometimes it's all about the attitude and the way they're supplied that people gravitate towards. I don't think you should necessarily confuse, and I'm saying this in like a Vince McMahon way here, like being a good guy with your top star, right? Like, it doesn't have to be that way. What's popular is what's entertaining. And Roman Reigns is that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Thank you very much, Mr. McCarthy, for coming on and sharing your amazing wisdom and knowledge. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, and it's good to finally have had you on. I know that we both share the Wrestling Daily Bros over there, the Daily Brothers, of course, Mr. SP3, so I knew I had to get you on. But for everybody out there, where can we find you, Mr. McCarthy? I know you're a few places, including Wrestling Daily and obviously Talk Wrestling.
I am a few places. So obviously on Twitter and Instagram, it's AlexM_Talksport. I drop clips of the interviews on Instagram, but you know, Twitter as well. I'll do the general day-to-day stuff. Talksport.com/wrestling is where I drop all these interviews. Talk Wrestling is my radio show, which goes out on Mondays, but the podcast now comes out on Wednesdays as well, which is doing really great, and people were clamoring for it for so long. So please enjoy that. And of course, Wrestling Daily, which I do with SP3, which you guys will know, Steph Chase and Louis Dangor has just departed, but we are getting a replacement. That's Tuesday to Friday, 8 p.m. UK time on YouTube. We do live shows every day, man, and we have guests sometimes like Luke Gallows, MJF. They've all been on there.
I saw MJF was hilarious. It was an excellent. You got it, you two that day. You did well. You did better.
I dreaded it all day.
Louis got a lot worse than you did.
Yeah, I don't want to like shatter the illusion of MJF, but like, I just won't.
It's worth going out. If you haven't seen it, it's worth going out your way to check that out. It was very entertaining.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, that's basically all the places you can find me. You know, got all your bases covered: YouTube, audio, Twitter, socials, and the website. If you're a fan of wrestling content, then I'm your guy.
There you go. Enough said. Well, thank you again, Mr. McCarthy, for coming on. Been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and hope to do it again soon, my friend.
I would love to, my friend. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
We are about the love of pro wrestling. We are the pre-match entrance and the post-match interview. We are the passion. We are the fun. We are Pete Dunne. We are the tricks, the risks, the crunching drop kicks. We are the crowd pleasers, the nail biters, and the risk takers. We are the art in the ring. We are the bright lights. We are the squared circle and the life of the fight. To re-watch our favourite wrestlers' moments. To live and breathe through the eyes of their opponents. We build the vision for you to explore. Here at Powered 4.